Good afternoon and welcome to the June 2nd edition of Partner First. Today we're going to be going over growing your MSP and how to build your sales and marketing teams. We're going to be joined by two friends over at OSR Manage. As always, these are recorded as well as live streamed. Recordings are available immediately after the fact on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching this. And we always invite any questions from our comments and our people in the chat. This is going to be a conversation, not death by PowerPoint, because we just don't do that here. So we look forward to learning on how to build a sales and marketing team for your MSP. I'm going to be joined by Mr. Tim McNeil, the COO of OSR Manage, and Rob Rogers, CEO of OSR Manage. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing well, sir.
Yeah,
How you doing
great.
today?
Yeah, how's everything going?
Fantastic.
Great shirt.
Tim, thank you. I appreciate it. Tim, so why don't you tell us a little about yourself? Give us some background.
Yeah. So Rob and I are initially we started OSR in Connecticut. Rob and I both used to live there, and oddly enough, we both moved to upstate New York, about 45 minutes away from each other when we were in Connecticut and while we're up here. My history is I came into the MSP space in September of 2009. Used to work at an MSP in the Hartford, Connecticut area. I was the top salesperson there. I was there for about 4.5 years. Rob came in about 2 years after I got there, and we just did some really nice things there. Right? We grew that company. We were fortunate enough to grow that company from about 12 people to 25 people in 2 to 2.5 years, and broke off and got to the point where our old employer literally couldn't hire technical staff fast enough. So he told us to stop selling. So we said, okay, put together a business plan and said, hey, we want to make you our first client. And he did. He became our first client. Initially, when we first started out 8.5 years ago, we were a lead generation company. If anybody out there has heard of like a Marketopia or Managed Sales Pros, we were going up against them day in and day out. Did that for about 5 years, and about 3.5 years ago, we just really saw that the climate of prospecting was kind of changing, and we sat back and we retooled our design internally and came out with what we call sales management as a service. And that's where we work with MSPs now, and we help them recruit, train, and manage throughout the entire sales process. Right. So that's, I guess, a little bit more, few more words than what I normally say, but that kind of brings us to where we are today. So
it's a good background. What about you, Rob? Give us some background on you and yeah, please.
Yeah, sure thing, man. So, originally from Tampa, Florida. So I found my way up to New York via my wife, and, I just followed the girl. But, my background, I was in the military. I learned a lot of process in the military, then went into pharmaceuticals, went into automotive, and did sales management through those industries, learning a lot of different styles there from Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies, and then came into the MSP space. And like Tim was talking about, they brought me in as the sales manager to take that small little company and give them big enterprise processes and how to, improve their business. And we were able to do that, right? I mean, to include, they had a fantastic owner and a fantastic company, right? So it wasn't just Tim and I show. They had all the people, all the processes, and all the pricing. We just kind of built the cake around it, right, for the clients.
Okay.
So we left there, and now we're doing this. And the thing that we like to do for our clients, and we have clients all over the nation, we do the recruiting, and then we teach them how to do the recruiting themselves, whether it's for a hunter, a farmer, whatever. And then we teach them how to do the training, and then we teach them how to do the daily management. And so we don't like to just tell people stuff. We like to show it and let them be able to do it on their own once they graduate from us. And that's the hope, right? That we can kick them out of the nest.
You'll teach them how to fish, right? Instead of
That's
just
right.
them a fish.
Exactly.
I like that. And that makes a lot of sense because, a lot of people, especially in the MSP world, I'm sure you've come across this, and definitely myself guilty of it back in the day when, I was doing the MSP stuff. We're guilty of like, let's get this thing. It's going to solve all our problems. Let's hire a salesperson. They're going to solve all our problems. Let's hire marketing people. They're going to solve all our problems.
That's right.
But they're just little pieces of the puzzle. Unless you have a full And it's not and I talk about this with tech all the time too. Owner operator starts a business, does really well, starts adding on new clients, suddenly he or she is overwhelmed. They hire a tech because the tech's going to solve everything. But every person you add to the team brings their own challenges, right? How are you going to
Mhm.
develop?
Oh yeah.
How do they fit in the ecosystem? How are you going to gauge performance? So it's hard enough when most MSPs are started by owners that are already tech, so they understand how to manage techs. Now, ask the average MSP, how do you run and build and manage a sales and marketing engine? They're completely lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They see a lot of value here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's,
You're. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
sorry, all I was going to say was, to your analogy of teaching a man to fish. I mean, when we were lead gen, one of the reasons we made that transition is because we felt like we were feeding the fish instead of teaching, right? And we knew we could do it better. We knew that we could just create a significantly higher value proposition and really just help our clients more.
Yeah.
And the transition has been, I think it's been great for us, and I think our clients, they truly appreciate it, right? The ones who are patient and consistent, you get the results after a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's all about patience and consistency.
I know the first question I'm going to get is, what is the size of MSP that is ideal to take advantage of your services?
Yeah.
Um,
We get that question all the time. You've failed your first salesperson already. You've already tried it yourself. You failed usually 2 or 3 times.
Mhm.
You're at about 1.5 million is
Mhm.
right where you start to get into that point where you can hire your first new logo sales rep, right? That hunter, and that's really around 8 people, 9 people. If you're like in that type of area, is where we come in and build your processes, build your people, and build everything. And that's where we find most people are successful, is at that area. Some people
Yeah.
start smaller, but that's really the sweet spot.
and I
Yeah.
imagine the experience of having hired and failed at having a salesperson is so they already understand. It helps them understand your value and helps them understand the challenges you're solving when you come to the table,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds
Very much
good.
so.
We do have a presentation we'll bring up on the screen,
Sure.
and I think we have this available for download too. Is that right, Simon? I'm getting the head nod. So we'll put the link in the we'll put the link below, so everybody have it. We'll include in the show notes after when this is up on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I imagine prospecting has changed, right? Like these are not the door to door times, or maybe they are, but pre 2020, pre end of the world, and
Yeah.
now I imagine some of the rules have changed a little bit, or some of the processes have changed a little bit.
hmm
Yeah.
They 100% have. I grew up in you get a phone book. Your boss tells you to go sit down, open up the phone book, and just make a bunch of calls, right? I was a brute force guy all my life. And you just cannot do that anymore. You just cannot be successful as being a brute force, picking up the phone 100 times a day and trying to call your way into solving all the problems. Because if we think about what we're really doing on the telemarketing side, all you can do is build awareness, and you're literally doing a one-to-one program.
Mm.
Where you're picking up the phone, you're trying to talk to that prospect, and you can get through to you get past the gatekeeper about 5% of the time now. So you can't do what you used to do, which is just hire another telemarketer and they can telemarket your way into awareness and get you an appointment. Just can't be done. You have to have other ways of building awareness, and that's where marketing really has just flourished through COVID. They have
Mhm.
really found a way to one to many a lot of types of awareness programs to help the salesperson at the end of the day take that awareness and create an action from it, right? And the action
Mhm.
being, is this a qualified appointment? Is this somebody who I can move forward through the sales process? So prospecting in 20, and we did a big data analysis in 2021 of the 427,000 calls that our employees made across the nation. We found what marketing programs were working, which ones were working the fastest, and which ones are still struggling out there trying to really find their sea legs, basically. But yeah, it's no longer a brute force type of calling only type of scenario. You can do it. You're just going to lag
Yeah.
behind your peers significantly.
Yeah.
And
And
were those
that's,
more effective? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask it like, but those were the things that were more effective pre-pandemic, or what's caused the sea change, right? Because obviously people are doing something because it did work at some point in time.
Mhm.
It did. It did. Well, and that's actually it ties into what I was about to say. So when I first came into the industry in '09, I think a lot of things have changed in the industry over the last, obviously, technology and from a sales aspect over the last 10 to 15 years. One of the biggest things is the average prospect, they know what an MSP is now, right? There's a lot of white noise out there. When I was new in the industry, I'm not saying it was easy to get appointments, because it's never been easy to get appointments in this industry, but it was significantly easier to get a large amount of appointments by just cold calling in '09 through 13, which is when we transitioned out. And even when we initially started as a lead gen company, we found a large amount of success for the first 3.5-ish years as a lead gen company. And we saw that the tide starting to change probably around 17 or 18, where just the average consumer, they just knew what an MSP was. And on top of that, insert the fact that there are longer contracts, what used to be month to month, then turned into a year. Now you're seeing as much as 5 years. And just this combination of things made it harder for only making calls to generate the same amount of appointments that used to happen, which is why we've seen, which is where this analysis comes into play, and some of the success that we've seen with the combination of sales and marketing together.
To put it into a little bit of perspective, back when I was managing Timmy and the other sales reps would have to make calls, I could count on Tim making 35 calls a day. And at the end of the week, he would have 3 appointments, right? It took him about 87 calls to get himself 1 appointment. Through new calls and follow-up calls and the wedge process and all the stuff that we know as salespeople. Then it started changing over time.
Yeah.
Right about before the pandemic, it was about 200 calls to get an appointment, depending on your territory, right? New York would be much tougher, right, than somebody down in Alabama. Would be easier. But it got to last year, it turned into about 300 calls on average just to get 1 appointment. Think about that. In 10 years, we went from 87 calls to get an appointment to 300 calls. And that's because we went from a fledgling industry where only some MSPs, the higher maturity level MSPs, were making calls, right? Everybody else was just hoping and praying, hoping for referrals.
Yeah.
Now, pretty much every MSP, it's got sales reps out there, or Marketopia, or Managed Sales Pros, or Abstract, or one of the other people with 30 employees picking up the phone and calling MSPs all the time, right? Calling prospects all the time. So it changed, and the white noise blew up, and that's where marketing is coming in and dominating right now.
Yeah.
So
And
it's you're trying to stand out, and this right now it's a needle in a haystack, because everybody and their mother, it's almost having the effect of making the MSP that's receiving the calls immune to it, because
Yes,
they're so oversaturated with the number of calls they're getting. So you can't stand out in that. It's
right.
Yeah.
just another annoyance. Yeah.
Correct.
It is.
Correct.
It is. Well, that and look, everybody sends out newsletters, and I'm speaking general terms, obviously. Everybody sends out newsletters. Everybody's posting on social media, so that creates even more white noise. Most people are sending out in some sort of email cadence on a regular basis, so that creates more noise, right? And it's just trying to cut through that white noise that has become more and more difficult throughout the years. And to Rob's point, the 200 calls to 1 appointment, you insert he picked on New York City, you insert in New York City, and even in today's days, if you're just cold calling in New York City, we kind of know for a fact that you could be 400 calls to 1 appointment. I mean, you show me a salesperson or a caller who wants to continue to do that long term, and I'll find you somebody who's extremely unique. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So it just means that you have to be
it's a special
bigger,
skill.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember back when I first got started, I worked with a bunch of telco companies. Well, not when I first got started, but back in the day for the MSP, I worked with a bunch of telco companies, and they would do the smile and dial, the knock and walk. And it was just like, it was a special class of person that had that thick skin to hear no 200 times a day
Yeah.
to get that, those 10 or 20 yeses.
Yeah.
Um, and they would burn out. I mean, and one of the companies I work, I can call them out, CBON, they don't exist anymore. But one of the things they did was they would hire these fresh college students that were studying, business or marketing or whatever, and they'd put them on the phones, and they knew they didn't last beyond a year or two because
Yeah.
they would burn out really, really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% what happens. And you can imagine, how could your job satisfaction be great when you make 100 calls and only 5 people even want to acknowledge your existence in that day? And every single day you're doing that, you start to get a negative, right? And it's just human nature. There's nothing wrong
Yep.
with it. It's just, it is what it is. So we had to find ways to get past that. So, Timmy and I are big salespeople. And
Mhm.
we always saw marketing as the other silo, right? Marketing does their thing, we do our thing, and it just can't be done that way anymore. And I'd like to draw your attention to the slide here and kind of like go through it, just show you what we found when we analyzed all 427,000 calls last year. If you had an internal digital marketing person and a BDR, right, a lead generator, it was taking those two in combination 303 calls. And it didn't matter if you had an internal digital marketer or an outsourced digital marketer. It didn't matter even if you had the lead generator by itself, because they're still kind of finding their way in it being integrated. The only one last year that made a difference is the direct mail marketing company, Robin
Hmm.
Robbins. Could not believe it. Before that, I had never been a Robin Robbins fan. I couldn't understand the process. I didn't think that it was valuable, but boy, did I put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah.
I was wrong. She cut her programs. If you put Robin Robbins with your lead generator, you cut your leads in half by 100%, right? You go from 300 down to 150. And not that it was her program, but the direct mail piece broke through the white noise
Yes.
significantly better than any digital piece out there.
Yeah, and that goes back to one of the things that we found success with when we were in the industry and when I was making those cold calls is, I'm sure most people on here listening right now, they probably have heard of a warm 250 list or ideal 250 list, whatever you might call it, right? And we
Actually,
always,
could you, for the benefit of the doubt, can you explain to our audience what that warm 250
Yes.
list is, what you're referring to?
Absolutely. So a warm 250 list, very simply put, it's not necessarily 250 companies. It's companies that they fit within your geographic reach, within your ideal size, within your ideal industries that you work in. And you also, and this is where we've put a little bit of our own spin on it. Like, the decision maker is, if they're working with an MSP already, and if they are, when that contract ends, you put them into what we would call like an elevated touch plan, right? And in that warm 250 list, on top of making your cold calls on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, the point of making those cold calls is to get the business intelligence to put people into that 250 list so that you can drip on them in a more proactive and efficient way. And my list, going back to when we were in the MSP space, probably never had more than 50, 60, 70 companies in it. But in the greater Hartford area, I knew that every month, if I sent out, we would get the Hartford Business Journal. I would find a tech article. I would print it out on a really nice paper. I'd put a handwritten note on it and send it in the mail. And then I'd follow up a couple days later, right? So that used to be some sort of cadence like that would be successful. In just getting in front of those top tier prospects that hit the marker of what would be your ideal client. I mean, that's really what you're looking for. Those higher touch points and the trying to get those whales on board.
Okay.
And that's something that we found to be successful back then. And not that we didn't see it be successful with some of the MSPs that we've worked with over the years, but the just having that physical mailer that, we say the name Robin Robbins, because we do have a lot of clients who use that, but we also have clients who they just have their own mailing system, right? And for those clients, they've had a significantly lower calls to appointment ratio, meaning 150 calls to one appointment versus 300 calls to one appointment.
It's funny you say that, because I remember one of the very first things when I started MSP, I had the benefit that in our local community, my family had been in the community 40 years. Miami Lakes is a couple 100,000 people max, less than 1 million. So we literally knew, and I'm born and raised here. We knew everybody, absolutely everybody. So started blasting. I bought postcards. I printed 1,000 postcards. I searched bulk rates. I splattered everywhere. I sent it out. I think within like a 5-mile radius, I sent out to businesses and stuff like that. Zero targeting. If it was a business that got a postcard. After about I sent 500 the first time. I said, okay, I'll learn from the first 500, and then I'll send the second 500. And the first 500 goes out, and I didn't get a single call, not one. The lesson I learned was to throw away the other 500 cards, because I didn't know what I was doing. So it's funny to hear like mail marketing, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I think about Robin Robbins, and I remember like getting the clear plastic with the dollar bill and the kitsch to it, and the Starbucks money, right? And I never got to keep it, because working with my daughter and my wife, they would take it, and it was their Starbucks money. But it does grab your attention, and I would get that from a lot of. So it's interesting to hear that even though I had immense failure with it, it is a method that works. It's just bringing in the knowledge and the experience, and I imagine a good amount of targeting to make it worthwhile.
Yeah. The cool thing about it is, so we have clients on it right now, and it'll literally change the rep's perception. So not only are you sending something out, but the rep is calling, and it's a warm lead now, right? Because the person on the other end says, "Oh, I got that." And then all of a sudden the walls go down a little bit, and the rep isn't just trying to brute force their way in, and they can both laugh about the piece that they just got, and it turns into more of a softer call instead of a interruption to the day. So that's what really works. And one of the I have a rep doing it right now, and he has gone from they just picked up the program 2 months ago, and he went from making 12 repeat calls to a prospect before he was able to get that person on the line and have a call, down to 4. It's changed. For some reason, this direct mail is different than everything else out there, and doing a direct mail is making people think that you're more authentic. So and that's what you care about.
Absolutely.
It's kind of funny to me how things they just come full circle, right? What's old is new. Once upon a time, there was one of the only ways to prospect was to send stuff in the mail and then follow up with a phone call, and then kind of got away from that to a certain extent, and now we're seeing, based on our evaluation of 2021, that that really is what cuts through that white noise. And the most important thing that we find in having that success is just having that sales and marketing team, or whether your marketing is outsourced or whether everybody's outsourced, making sure that everybody is on the same page and they know what the message is, right? I kind of go back to what Rob kind of hinted to, or had mentioned a few minutes ago. I think historically there have been silos around the marketing department versus sales department. It's like they almost fight against each other, where if they learn to work with each other and they're on the same page and the same message is going out across everybody, that's where we're seeing the success.
Yeah. You're on mute.
Yep. I think you're on mute.
Every single live stream.
There it is.
That is the only rule that's held true during the entire pandemic. I will be muted once a live stream. So help me qualify that, right? Because we struggle with this internally. We used to have sales very, very, very deeply involved with the marketing teams, and we learned that we ended up with a ton of overlap and struggles for each person having their own responsibilities. Now we have healthy communication, but each person has their own initiatives and their own things. Now there's a shared message. There's a shared communication strategy we employ, But can you give some quantifiable goals or metrics you use to say they need to work together? What exactly does that look like?
Sure. So
Yeah.
there's two pieces on the marketing side, right? There's the branding side, which is circle of influence. It's helping you out, and it's helping your general message, and that has nothing to do with sales team, right? That's their own thing that they have to do, and those metrics are different. But the metrics that we care about are the marketing qualified leads that are coming in the door, so the sales team can get to their piece. You want 12 marketing qualified leads per month coming in the door. That's how many you want. If you can get 3 a week, you guys have a well-oiled machine. From that 12, the salesperson will qualify and be able to work with 8 of those, and those become your sales qualified leads. So that's the metric that the integration between the two are working. If you're getting 12 marketing qualified leads, people who are generally interested, and then you can turn those into some type of action, at 8, then you've done your job.
Mhm.
And those are the two real numbers that you have to work with. Everything below that in the funnel is a salesperson's responsibility, and everything above that, the leads, the prospects, the suspects, that's the marketing team's responsibility to
Mhm.
get them to, where the two teams overlap right there.
Yeah.
That's the synergy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's perfect. Thank you very much for that.
sure.
Yeah, and that really just goes back to the open lines of communication, and that is something historically we've seen a struggle between the sales and marketing side, but man, when they're focused in that manner, it just works. It just
Yeah.
works. And also to clarify that of the if a sales, if those 12 MQLs come through and 8 of them are booked in a month, that doesn't mean that they're all going to be getting proposals, right? It doesn't mean that they're all going to be right time, right place. What it means is the salesperson, you're going to have a portion of those that go to proposal. You're going to have a portion that will close over time. A majority of them are going to be really what turn into relationship appointments, which is why you have a salesperson, right? The whole reason for having a salesperson is to make sure that those people that are willing to have that conversation but can't move forward, whether they're in a contract that ends in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever that might be, that's where having that salesperson staying on top of them is just so important to the overall health of the sales department.
So let me ask you so $1.5 million ideally annual
Mhm.
revenue. They've tried and failed with the salesperson. So that's the ideal MSP to work with you. A lot of our MSPs are much smaller, right? Owner
Mhm.
operator, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. Chicken and egg question. Which comes first,
Oh,
sales or marketer?
very,
I know you're
it's
going to say both, but
no, no, no.
$7 million.
No,
All
No,
right.
absolutely not. So first thing
Okay.
you do is you outsource your marketing to make sure your website, your unique selling proposition or unique value proposition, all that stuff is squared away. And that's a project. Don't let somebody tell you that they've got to, keep you in an outsourced marketing agreement when you're a small fledgling company. You need to get your stuff up and running in a project, and then they're kind of done. Then the next thing that you have to do is you can outsource a small piece of your branding side, because right now the most important piece of a marketing approach for an owner who doesn't have a sales team is Dripify to LinkedIn Sales Navigator.
Yeah.
It's hands down the best small business prospecting system that you can do. We don't have time as the business owners to pick up the phone, and a lot of MSPs don't have the courage to pick up the phone 15 times. They don't have the time. So you've got to do Dripify to a LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Do that by yourself. And then the very first hire that you're going to make is your account manager, your client account manager, before you hire an outbound salesperson.
Yeah.
Mute.
Second time.
Jesus. So you had me. I was focusing on Dripify. So we put the link in the chat, or put the link in the screen, and Simon will put it over in the chat.
Mhm.
So Dripify over to LinkedIn Navigator.
Mhm.
LinkedIn Navigator is not all that expensive. I haven't looked at the pricing on Dripify, but the idea is to automate as much as possible.
One too many.
I've said this 1,000 times myself, right? Like, at 30 people, I still have a healthy amount of work. But the truth is, if I want to sod off and do one of these or play Call of Duty or something for
Right.
30 minutes, I can afford to do it because I have really smart people doing the hard work, like
Right.
Simon and everybody else.
Right.
When you're a smaller MSP, you're that owner operator wearing 2,000 hats.
Yeah.
You need to focus on as much automation as possible. So,
Yeah.
and especially for the things we suck at, right? Like, let's be honest, the average MSP owner operator is not great at marketing and prospecting. And
Yeah.
so I love
Yeah.
tools like this that just make it that much easier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty inexpensive. The whole thing is $250 a month, right
Yeah.
around that price point. Dripify plus, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, um, and you can, and there's so many videos out there, to get this going for you. Uh, it works,
It
right?
does.
It works, and it's something like, okay, let me qualify that. It's not the golden lead. It's not the golden ticket. You're not going to go from a $1 million company to a $20 million company. None of that's going to happen.
Oh no, then
You're
I'm out
you're going to
then.
get
Forget
one
it.
Yeah.
extra lead,
Yeah.
2 extra leads, right? Which is where
Correct.
you want to be as a smaller company, trying to get out there and because if Timmy always says his best, if you have to pick between following up with a prospect and solving an issue with your client who's paying you, you're going to go with the client who's paying you and then forget about prospecting, right? It's
Yes.
just it's how it goes.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. That
And
go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, everything that we've talked about with Dripify, it's a very efficient way to just get in front of a lot of prospects within your reach, whatever your reach is. Maybe it's your 50-mile radius of your office, or where you work out of. Another thing that we found to be successful, if you, let's say you're an MSP that's, you're still one single owner operator, or you've only got a couple of people on staff, or whatever that situation might be, really taking and understanding that as an MSP or as any company, when you start out, I mean, you really, there's that adage of any revenue is good revenue, right? If you're at that
Right.
point where you're starting to see trends within your client deck, where you've got 3 or 4 law firms, or 3 or 4 healthcare facilities, or whatever that situation may be, be a subject matter expert. Find an association in your area for whether it's engineering, construction, lawyers, CPAs. Get into those associations and do whatever you need to do to be that subject matter expert. If they have a year-end banquet, figure out a way to get on stage. That in conjunction with Dripify, being involved in chambers, being involved in, although depending on the area, B&I can get kind of weird. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not, fully admit. It does work for some people, right? So these are all things that we have seen work for that MSP owner, or for that MSP that they don't have the revenue yet to have a full-time salesperson, a full-time marketing person, and certainly don't have enough revenue to have both of them. So it just,
Right.
anything you can do to build your brand awareness is what you're shooting for in the beginning.
Yeah.
And how important is that brand awareness? I mean, don't get me wrong. As an MSP, I have always loved branding. Absolutely love branding.
Yeah,
But
yeah. That shirt's ever.
But how important is it really? Like, in the grand scheme of the marketing, how important is that branding?
In the beginning, it's vital. When you're a smaller company, you run out of friends and family. You were lucky, right? Your family knew everybody in the area, so you kind of had a wish list, and you could just kind of go down your list. Not every business has that, right, when they're
Mhm.
first starting out. And to Tim's point, the Chamber of Commerce is such a good idea for a smaller business, because you get the list from the chamber and you see all the people that are on that chamber. You see which of your clients are on that list also. You call them up, your client, so it's not a hard call, and you say, hey, I want to do a co-branding presentation
Yes.
at this month's night event, right? There's always a night event every month in every chamber in the entire world. They always have once a month, show up somewhere. So you two go to whoever's hosting that month, and you say, hey, we want to do a small presentation. We're going to do a lot of co-branding. We'll do a lot of marketing out there, and we'll do an event at your event to talk about cybersecurity and cyber insurance, and all the different things that are starting to be really important right now. So co-brand with your clients, go to a chamber event, and do it at the monthly night event, and you'll get people, and people will start gravitating to you as the cybersecurity expert, right? Because you did it with a law firm that they know, or an insurance company that they know, and that's how where branding is vitally important for that small business trying to get those referrals, which are significantly easier to close than a cold call lead.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and
I also
that's my fault, Tim. Go ahead, man. This is why I should keep
Sorry,
myself
that's
muted.
like the third time. Sorry. The only thing I was gonna add was look, there's, whether people want to admit it or not, I think there is there's a commodity play in the MSP space right now. There's a lot of people saying the same things, and you've got to separate yourself. And it's really important to separate yourself from the beginning. Going in, defining your core values for one thing. I know we've talked about ways to get in front of prospects, but out of the gate, defining your core values and not having we talk in English, or we've got great customer service, or we've got great response time, we've got great communication. Those are ways. I mean, everybody kind of has that, right? So again, we talked about separating from the noise. You've got to separate yourself from the noise, and to do that, it's just being in front of people and having people remember the face, the name, the logo, and when all of that starts to come together, that's when things start to click.
But my MSP is different. I give fast support, and I act like I'm a member of your company, and we really care about our customers. We're completely different.
You're absolutely right. But every MSP is saying the same thing when it's their turn to stand in front of the prospect.
Yes.
So because that, it makes it table stakes. So it could be true, but they won't know it until they work with you, and you can't get them to work with you unless they see that you have a perceived higher value than what everybody else that came in the door said, because everybody's saying it the same way right now.
There.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. I didn't equate one to the other. I always wanted it as, I want them, when they're thinking about something, I want them to think of the brand that they've seen over, beat them over the head with it over and over again. So that, when they have that thought, they equate it to us. But I didn't think about that differentiation, right? That, so it makes a lot of sense to me.
It's hard, man. The unique selling proposition or your value proposition is hands down the hardest thing that you're going to do in your company. The hardest. And to start off that thing, you have to talk to your clients. What do they perceive your value to be? Right?
Yeah.
So you need to have 3 unique selling propositions, 3 unique value propositions. And one of them has to be completely unique to you, perceived in the market. Right? So it has to be something that makes you sing for those people. Now, 2 of them can be things that other people might have as well, but one of them has to be unique to you. And it's hard to build, and it takes a long time to build that.
It does.
So I have a question here from Dallin Loomis. He's asked, I always feel like chamber events are just a bunch of desperate salespeople trying to sell to each other, not to mention they're very cliquey, might be a California thing. Tim, you were talking about BNI and about these groups. I've definitely seen that sometimes. A lot of times you don't get the decision makers, you get, prospectors, marketers trying to do the same thing you are. How do you make the best use of that?
Yeah, so that's where, first off, I can't totally disagree with that, right? I did chamber events when we were at the MSP that we worked at. I was in a BNI group, and there are a lot of salespeople that go to those things, especially the happy hours. Like, that's where there do tend to be the happy hour salespeople that just want to get out of work early and just go get drunk on a Wednesday or what have you. But they're usually, the average chamber out there, they do have events that are more geared for the owners, right? So it's really important to focus on those. I can only speak to, or I can speak to up here. I live in the Saratoga, New York area. Saratoga Chamber of Commerce it's actually a relatively large chamber. And they do have a tremendous amount of weekly things going on. And some of them really are geared, like truly are geared more for the owners. So it's just finding that niche within the local chambers that you have and try and get it geared, try and find that event that is more geared for the owners. And going back to what Rob said, I think it's really important to get into a chamber where you may have a client or two and do some co-branding. And whether that event is held at your office or your client's office, there also tends to be a higher success rate from that standpoint. Going to a bar or a restaurant, you're probably not going to get the traction that you would if you were at a client of yours office or in your office specifically. So, I mean, again, every chamber is different, but those are little tricks that I've seen work, and things that I used to get better traction with going back to when I was involved in chambers, albeit already 10 years ago at this point.
Right.
So something I've noticed also is, you treat it like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? It's not so much that the person in the group is going to be your direct sale. That's not going to be the person that you're going to pitch to. You want to make them your friend, your champion, no different than with like the gatekeeper, right? You want to make somebody in that org, whether it's a prospective client or a current client, an active client, you want to make somebody in there your champion, somebody that's going to be your bell, that's going to tell you when something's awry, somebody that's going to tell you when there's an incoming need, somebody that's going to tell you when you're doing well. But you need that champion, hopefully more than one, but at least one per client and per prospect. If you can make that BNI person your champion, your advocate, or that person you're in your group, and say, let me go back over here to your company and let me help you guys over there too. Maybe you're not selling to them, but you could be selling to the people that they go and they meet when they're prospecting, right? Salespeople are always prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like that. I like also, Simon can tell you, I mean, we do 30 pieces of content a quarter. So, lots of booking for Partner First, Tech Bar, Technical Deficit, all that fun stuff. Finding people and content is hard. It's a full-time job. And with, the pandemic, everybody has a podcast now. Everybody has a live stream. Everybody has webinars they're putting on, because they were forced to. They are struggling just as much to have content. Every BNI, every, chamber has their events they do for education. They're struggling for content too. So I guarantee you they'll be happy. You go and say, hey, I have content I can pitch, I can, present at one of your events. And you're just making their lives that much easier.
Yeah.
And it makes you a subject matter expert. Why not?
It does. And, like your goal, to the question of, they're very salesy. Yeah, sure. 100%. There's always that element. But if you're making calls, 95% of the people that you're making calls to don't want to have anything to do with you right now either. So you're looking for those small group of subset people that you're trying to click with. I love co-branding with clients. We co-market pre-show, then we do the show, and then we post-market, doing social media. So then now I'm involved in their spider web of the social media network. And then when I'm going to speak to one of the prospects that happen to know them, I have a little bit more of an in. So don't think that you're going to go do a co-branding show and then you're going to have people holding up their business cards and rushing the stage, like you're some group, like
You're Bono, right?
That's right. Yeah,
briefcases on the
it's
stage.
not going to happen, right? It's just that's not the way it's going to work. You're doing it for the long ball. You're doing it to make your client more sticky with you. You're doing it to get yourself into their social network and to help them find ways to give you referrals. Calling up a client and just saying, hey, do you have any referrals to me? That's tough, man. It's tough for them to think of something. And, it just makes it kind of tough. But if you're doing co-branding events while you're there, they're going to also know one of their clients and they're going to introduce you to their client. So that's the way that it works. It's a spider web approach, not a, call up and get an appointment type of thing.
Yeah.
And I like what Glenn had brought up. Glenn Holcomb, actually the king of branding, Mighty Manatee over in Central Florida. This man is a genius when it comes to branding and marketing. Also worked at a New York MSP and flew down to Florida because, as the law, eventually you come down to Florida at some point when you're from New York. But he brings up his chamber does a speed dating for business. Tables of 6, everyone gets 2 minutes. Then they change tables. I think that idea is awesome. If your chamber's not doing something that is fun or entertaining or engaging for you, take these ideas to them. Be that person that says, "Hey, I think we could do this," because if you're struggling with it, I guarantee you somebody else is. Um, I want to. I'm going to say I disagree with Dallin. Dallin's a good friend. He's also a VoIP vendor, just like us. Running his own thing over in California. But he says it's hard to make content when your industry isn't sexy like VoIP. Um, Homie, we're a VoIP company. We're not talking VoIP right now. You don't have to. It's you can talk about it. I don't think I've heard either Rob or Tim at any point say you have to talk about yourselves.
Oh, no.
You just got to
No,
talk
no,
about
no.
something.
Yeah.
No,
I'll
yeah.
tell you, if you do a podcast, which I'm a big believer in podcasts, we've been doing it for, a year and a half now, every week. We never talk about us. We bring on an MSP and we talk about that MSP, and people flock to the thing because you're
Yeah.
talking about them. As a VoIP company, you bring in your clients and you talk about them, and then
Yeah.
they throw you out into their social network, and then you talk about a different client. You don't have to talk. Nobody wants to talk beeps and clicks, right? But they want to be able to
Right.
share experience that they can understand, the trials, the tribulations, everything that went wrong, right? Going and hitting speed bumps, backing up and hitting the same speed bump 3 more times. That's what people want to hear, and those are exciting stories. And it doesn't matter if it's VoIP, if it's insurance, if it's some boring sales guy, droning on and on and on. It's the cool stuff is the client's perspective of anything going on out there. That's what's fun to listen to.
Yeah. You'll get those
And,
groups.
and that's exactly. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said he'll
And
get those
I was going to
groups.
say that's exactly the point here, though, right? Like, Dallin is never going to buy VoIP services from me. He is a VoIP vendor. It
Yeah.
doesn't change that he's sitting here listening to me for this. You know what I mean? It's those kind of things. Just cementing yourself as a subject matter expert, that has value.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should ever miss out on those opportunities.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I
Totally
agree.
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 Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
So I do want to get back to your wonderful presentation. I don't. You guys put a lot of work into it, so I don't want to forget it. Even though
Sure.
the conversation's been entertaining, we have 7 minutes left because I want to be respectful to our audience here. And I agree with Dallin. We do need VoIP groupies. That I'm completely
Would be amazing.
absolutely.
I don't know. You keep producing those kind of shirts there, and people are going to be flocking to you.
Yeah,
Every time I
yeah.
see your company, you have cool shirts on.
I know.
You know?
Every time.
Every time.
We
Yes.
and we have new ones coming out specifically for IT Nation Secure and Connect. So
Nice.
I know you guys are talking about coming out to Connect, so we'll make sure to get you some swag too.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome. That'd be
Appreciate
great.
it. With this slide right here, I just want to kind of sum up everything that we're kind of talking about, and just make it quick, and then maybe we can, answer some more questions and talk to people about how they can move forward, if they're fledgling businesses trying to move up. What we found is if you had a salesperson just by themselves, your cost to acquire an appointment was pretty high, right? But if you had a direct mailing approach, and we use Robert Robbins because everybody knows it, they understand that system, and they can visualize it. But you could do your own. You don't have to go and spend money with other people. You could do it yourself. Um, the cost to acquire the appointment was significantly less if you used that Robin Robbins approach. Even though you had to pay for Robin Robbins, you had to pay for the telemarketer, and you had to pay for your time to manage both processes. It was the least amount of money. Now, on the slide after it, it goes into how much money do you make, right? You make significantly more money if you do digital marketing as well. For some reason, the leads that you're getting are more, right? So that's the really cool part about this, presentation. When you finally get yourself up to, and we'll use Paul Dipple's, OML, operational maturity level, but use it for sales. When you finally get yourself up to the top of the pyramid, you're getting bigger deals faster,
Yeah.
but the investment is more, right? I mean, you have to invest in the marketing, the digital marketer. You have to invest in the the direct marketing. You have to manage the salesperson as well, but you're going after bigger deals at that point, right? And that's the kind of the beauty of it. And you're able to hook those bigger fish because you have a better cohesive marketing sales integration.
Yeah.
But the investment's not so bad if the investment's not the scary part. It's the am I going to get a return part, right? And I mean, over the years, I know you guys do your market research. You have plenty of your own experience, but every marketer you talk to is going to say, well, there's no silver bullet and we can't guarantee anything. And not that anybody's asking for guarantees, but
Mm.
they want to have at least some kind of assurance that they're doing the best practice possible. And with so many options,
Yeah.
it's hard to do, which dovetails us back to our very beginning conversation, where as MSPs, we tend to try things in piecemeal.
Oh,
Let me
yeah.
get this marketing tool here. Let me get this prospector there. Let me get this cold. But if you're not looking at the whole ecosystem, right? Building that team together, a cohesive team,
Mhm.
you're going to struggle and you're going to have a lot of wasted investment, which is why I like the approach you guys bring, because that teaching to fish, but you're teaching to have that whole ecosystem
Yep.
thrive,
And
which
teaching
is
you
so much more valuable.
which piece to do first, right? That's where we really hang our hat. Teaching you how to do these big podcasts is not important when you're trying to get yourself from 4 people to 5 people in your company, right? You need to figure out ways to get people in the door now, right? And so, that's what we teach people how to do, is to know which piece to go after first and fix that.
Yes.
To your point of the investment part, it's hard. It's hard, being an owner
It
myself, and I
is.
see money going out the door that I'm never going to get back. And, waiting a year before I see any return on my investment, then the salesperson quit. Then I have to restart it again. And then the
Mm.
next salesperson sucked. Then I got to restart it again. And I'm a year and a half into this before I see any money. And it's money out of my family's pocket. Right. So I get it. You have to look at it like you're investing in your future. You're not going to get your return this year. You're just not, no matter what program you're doing. Don't stay 6 months anywhere. Give everything that you're going to be doing at least a year to see if the engine pilot light turns on.
Yeah.
Being a serial vendor dater, you're setting yourself up for disservice. Don't even do it. Don't do any of it if you can't invest a year and have that money bookmarked. Don't do it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
that's absolutely fair.
I was going to say the same thing. We've even back when we were lead gen, there were plenty of people that would come to us and they had 3, 4, 5 salespeople, and they just said, you know what, we just want to write a check and have you take care of it, and that's how we're going to get our best return. And it's just like, well, you look back and you see a trend of there are a segment of MSPs out there where they try something for 3 to 6 months, and it's just not enough time, right? And it's just not. You need a year at least. And as much as people don't want to hear it, with COVID, I think even though we're on the other side of it for the most part, right? I do think that has lengthened it even by a little more, but by default, it's got to be a year. If you can't give it a year, unless the company completely crashes and burns, and I'm sure everybody understands what that means, right? But as long as there is consistency in activity, and you're doing it on a schedule, and you just need that patience, and it's going to take 12 months, which can be very frustrating for people, but it will
Which is
happen.
it's frustrating, but it's reasonable if it's not about the results. It's about it's not about what happens. It's about the expectations you set. If you go into it
Yes.
saying, hey, look, we're going to do this for 12 months. It doesn't mean that we're going to wait till month 12 to see what happened. We can say quarter by quarter, these are the metrics we're looking for to show us we're on the right path,
Mhm.
but we're not going to get to where we want to get to before 12 months. Let's be real honest about it. So the MSP can budget for that appropriately,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that makes absolute sense. But we're at the top of the hour, so I want to be fair to everybody.
Sure.
This presentation is available for download. The contact information is also going to be in the show notes. Reach out to Rob and Tim. Brilliant guys. They have so much more information than we were able to get to on this. We may have you back to get to the rest of it and answer more questions.
Sure.
But thank you so much for being on, guys.
No problem.
I know you said you'll be at ChannelCon. Where else can we find you?
Ooh. So we've been asked to be the subject matter experts for Evolve. Evolve is starting sales peer groups in the fall. We will be the guys for it. So if you are
Awesome.
in Evolve, jump into their sales peer groups that start in Q3. We are going to be doing Robin Robbins coming up here in a couple of weeks for the Producers Club. Timmy, what else do we have going on here? I mean, we have a really packed second half of the year.
Yeah, ASCII event in actually down your way. We'll be in Miami and Dallas for ASCII, as well as it's looking like we'll probably be at IT Nation in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Awesome.
So,
Looking forward to it. And as always, if you guys missed any part of this, this is recorded, so you can go back and play it immediately after this is done. No waiting whatsoever. Rob, Tim, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it. You guys, absolutely platinum information, and I appreciate you taking time to share with us.
Absolutely, Ray. Really appreciate being on here, man. Thank you for inviting
Yeah,
us.
it was really fun. It was
Absolutely.
good being on here.
Yeah, we have some coming events also. Simon, what do we got coming up?
Yeah, so we do have a couple events. Like Ray just mentioned, we just got wrapped up with growing your MSP, how to build your sales and marketing department. So the recording will be available right after for anyone who missed anything. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., catch up with the MSP Dispatch Week wrap-up of the industry news hosted by Ray Orsini and Tony Francisco. On Monday and through Wednesday, we're going to be at IT Nation Secure in Orlando, Florida. And then on Tuesday, we're going to be back with MSP Dispatch. And we're also going to be doing at 5:30 on Tuesday, live from IT Nation Secure, the Tech Bar and MSP Geek live meetup. So make sure you find us at room Daytona 2 at 5:30 during the pub crawl.
Very
With
nice.
tons of swag for the attendees and the hosts. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, OIT family, for joining us for this Partner First. Hopefully it was informative, educational, and you got a little bit out of it. You can take back to your MSP or your company and build some more success. Let us know in the comments if you do, because we want to hear about it. If you have challenges and we missed it, put it in the comments too. We'll make sure to hit up Rob and Tim and get some answers on those. But until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
This has been a broadcast